Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of How I Raised My First Million by Asian Hustle Network. This week we have such an amazing founder. Her name is Sophia Yen. She actually raised $2.1 million for her company, and we're happy to have her on the show today. Sophia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, Sophia, I'm gonna hop right into it. I know you want to be a doctor since the fourth grade. Tell us about your story from the very beginning and walking us through to the point where you first met your co-founder and started your startup.
Okay, it's going to be a long story. But I've always, being of Asian heritage, your options for being a doctor, a programmer, and now a startup founder. But that was not back in the day. And my mom was a nurse, and she said, be a doctor, don't be a nurse. The nurse does all the scut work, and the doctors get the credit. And I was like, okay, mom, I'll do that. I love science. I love people. And so if you don't love people, then go be a PhD and do the research. But if you love people, the doctor part, each person has their unique story to tell you. And it's a privilege to hear that story and to work with that person to make their health better. So that was the basis of me being a doctor. And then growing up, knowing that I was going to be a doctor since fourth grade, I actually used the doctor as a scheme or scam to get more stickers off my mother. Because I was like, oh, well, I can't just have one sheet of stickers because if someone takes a sticker, then the next patient will be really sad. I need like 3 sheets of every sticker so that if they take one, then I'll have some left over. So I got 3 times as many stickers pulling off the future doctor scam on my parents. And then went to medical school and was like, well, I really love women's rights, reproductive health, preventing unplanned pregnancy. I'll be an OB-GYN. But then I realized I'm not so good with anatomy. I'm not so good on surgery. Every surgery I went into, you do not want me in on your surgery because what was supposed to be a 1 hour surgery would turn into a 12-hour surgery. And it wasn't because I was doing anything. It's just like anytime I'm in the room, you do not want that. And then I found adolescent medicine, which is what we call sex, drugs, rock and roll, a little acne, some sports medicine. And I could do outpatient gynecology without surgery, without having to deliver babies, without being woken at 3 a.m. And I was like, yes, that's for me. And then went and grew up in the Bay Area, went to MIT, froze my butt off as a pre-med, but really conducive to studying, and then came back to the Bay Area, UCSF, one of the top medical schools in the nation, loved UCSF, the teachers there, my classmates, everybody so bright, so smart, so nice, which was really cool as well. Then did Children's Oakland, where I specialized in the little ones, and then did another 3 years fellowship to specialize in teenagers. And then to get all the degrees in the Bay Area, I got a master's in public health at UC Berkeley, specializing in maternal child health, specializing in childhood obesity, because I love reproductive health, but I figured under a Republican administration, they wouldn't fund reproductive health, but they would fund obesity. So I did obesity, and then eventually came down to Stanford, where I'm a clinical associate professor in the Department of Pediatrics and the Division of Adolescent Medicine, hoping to attain full professor someday. And then one day was giving a talk to a bunch of doctors. Why don't women take their birth control? And one of the top reasons was didn't have it in their hand. Didn't have time to run to the pharmacy every single month. And if any of you have ever been on the birth control pill or know about birth control pills, it's 3 weeks one color and then 1 week another color. And if you don't get to the pharmacy by the end of this week, there will be a dire consequence. You will risk pregnancy. You will bleed when you don't want to bleed. There's just like this subliminal stress that those of us that are born with a uterus that don't want to get pregnant and are sexually active have to worry about every single month from age 15 to 50 or 52 on average is menopause, and you can't have any more babies after that because you don't make any more eggs that whole time every single month. If you don't go to the pharmacy, there will be a dire consequence if you're on the birth control pill. And my friend and I looked at each other and we're like, we can solve this. We will just ship women birth control and keep shipping it until they tell us to stop. So then we ran ads. Free birth control delivery. And when we did that, 60% of the women that responded did not have a prescription. And as a doctor, I'm like, Do you not know you need a prescription? You can't just walk in and be like, give me some birth control pills. That's not the way things work. And luckily, I could write prescriptions because I was a doctor, and thus Pandia Health was born. If you have a prescription, you have insurance, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, no copay, no deductible, free for anyone with insurance to get your birth control, any FDA approved birth control. If you need to use a doctor, we currently only charge $30 once a year to use our expert doctors with unlimited follow-up questions, because I didn't want anybody stopping their birth control because they're like, oh, I can't afford a follow-up or whatever. And I was like, no one runs out of birth control on our watch. That is the motto of our company at Pandia Health. And then our doctor looks at the questionnaire. It's the same 20 questions that the state of California approved for pharmacists to write birth control. We are 100% physician team. So our doctor looks at it, writes a prescription, and then just to throw in, because this is the Asian Hustle Network, as a doctor and woman of color, I realized that all of medicine is based on a 70-kilo white man. And certainly not for birth control. But I realized that pill that we're teaching across the nation is great if you're a Caucasian female that wants to bleed every month. But if you're of Asian, Black, Latino descent, that pill that we're teaching all the medical students and residents to write does not work so well for our people. I had to go through 3 different birth control pills until I found one that didn't have side effect. And as a professor, I'm teaching these students and I'm like, this is the pill I keep telling, I keep trying it. And every time I try it, I get this side effect. So I took all the birth control pills, ranked them. Most likely make you bleed, least likely make you bleed. Most likely give you munchies, least likely give you munchies. Most likely give you zits, least likely give you zits, and fixed it for that side effect we were seeing in people of Asian, Black, and Latino descent. And with that, our company has 82% retention at a year versus the standard 33 to 55% retention. And so that's part of our secret sauce, is using age, BMI, health history, race as a proxy for genetics to find you the best birth control pill. So you don't have to go through 3 different pills. We just take you to the good one. And we have better patient adherence, compliance, retention, lower churn than other companies because we're providing expert care by expert doctors. And then I hit menopause. And so all my friends are like, menopause. And I'm like, yes. I will find the best treatment for me, and I will share it with all of you. And we were lucky along the way to pick up 2 out of the 1,300. There's only currently, as of today, 1,300 Menopause Society certified practitioners for the whole country. And we picked up 2 of them, and they're both OB-GYNs. They both have 20 plus years experience, and they're leading our menopause practice. So we're all about expert care by expert physicians and bringing better than academic care to wherever you have internet and a mailbox. So that's the story of the creation of Pandia Health.
No, I love it. I think I have to give you a lot of credit here, right? MIT and then living the Bay and all these degrees that you picked up along the way, like to build your credentials, and obviously spotting an opportunity in the market, right? That not only addresses other women's needs, but your personal needs as well, which is absolutely fantastic when I hear that story from founders. I feel like the founders who have these pain points themselves are the ones that can talk from experience, can ask the right questions to identify which part of the business does this need improving on, right? And it comes down to asking simple questions. It's like sometimes we kind of accept society as the way it is, and we're like, okay, this is how the things that we do things in society, like we just accept it. But it only comes down to it could be better. Right. And that's when the entrepreneurial hack falls on. And I feel like it's happened with you too, right? And I know I'm a male speaking on this industry, which is not very appropriate at all. So, but knowing what I know about the industry itself and do a lot of reading on your company and your backstory and so forth, I think is a fantastic idea. But I would imagine at the very beginning, this idea was very hard to pitch, right? And for some people, it doesn't make sense to them. What is the business model behind this? I don't get it. Are you the right person? So many questions that venture capitalists ask founders, right? I understand that it was very difficult for you to raise your first 650,000 pre-seed. What was the process like? Walk us through that.
So, anytime you start a company, you have to hit up your friends and family. And I not everyone has friends and family that can invest, but I did go to MIT and some of my classmates have opened companies and they've done well. And, as an Asian, I would rather die than not pay back my brother, my cousin. You totally lose face. I would just die, And so know that all the people I've taken money from, I would rather die than not pay them back because you go to Asian hell, right? And as I was pitching, it was very frustrating back in 2016 to pitch like a 60, 70-year-old guy. I could always pitch the assistant who made the appointment, the receptionist who made the appointment. I even like won this pitching competition, went to London, and the guy was like, I just don't see a market for your company in this country. But his assistant, a male, had spoken to his girlfriend. And the girlfriend's like, I love this. I can't wait till this company comes to the UK. And I was like, dude, why didn't you tell your boss what your girlfriend just said to you? Because he told me that I lost by like 1 point. And I was like, that could have been the point, man. Please, why aren't you helping me? And so it was just crushing to the soul because exactly as you said, many of these older Caucasian, male VCs, they don't get the pain point. They understand golf, they understand juice, they understand coffee, they understand, cars, but they don't understand birth control. And it affects 50% of the population. And it affects actually 95% of the population because everyone came from a uterus. My dad, I love him. He's like crazy feminist. He's like, respect the womb. We all came from the womb. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, there's no life without the womb. And I was like, yeah. And so like, even if women aren't using it for birth control, 70% of the people using birth control are using it for other reasons. Bad, evil periods, painful periods, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis. So there's just so many uses, so many reasons. And I saw it as, yes, it is a low margin, thing, but I'm going to own this woman from age 15 to 50. And then we added menopause, and menopause right now, they're like, 10 years. But I believe that your body takes away your estrogen. And it's not just going to manifest estrogen in 10 years. So in 10 years, you take it away, it's going to be the same problem. So you just got to continue this till you die. So we're going to have the patient or, lifetime value is infinite. Well, not infinite, but 15 until 80, 90. I want to live to 120, right? And so we start with birth control. We switch to menopause. Along the way, we can treat acne, polycystic ovarian syndrome. We can refer you to people because I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So if somebody does IVF and baby stuff right, I'll refer you to them. And as I like to say, if I get big enough, I buy you out. You get big enough, you buy me out. But I'm betting I'm buying you out. And so we purposely chose the name Pandia, the Greek goddess of healing, light, full moon, because we're all about women's empowerment. And then people are like, are you Pandia Health? And I'm like, no, not Pandia Health, Pandia. So the way to remember it, Pan is every, Dia is day. We want to be with you every day from age 15 throughout your life to make your life easier.
No, I love that story a lot. I love Pandia, the name as well, every day. I think that I know the way that you pitched it now, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But I'm pretty sure that you went through several rounds of iteration of getting the pitch correctly. I think for myself pitching too, can I relate too? Because we also raised 650,000 during the first fundraising ever, and that was probably the hardest ever. To what are you building? I don't get it. What is Asian Network for? What is this for? So just to build like some relatability to like a founder just starting out today. Like, tell us about like the first pitch that you made, and when was this, right? How many years ago was this when you first made the first pitch, and what was going through your mind, right? Because I would imagine like, oh man, that came out so wrong, which is normal, by the way. Like all of us have to go through the iteration in order to get better and better and better.
Yes. No, it's you iterate, and you need to know who you're pitching, what their interests are, what companies they've already invested in. It's the standard 10 slides, right? You have to have the problem, the solution, the market, why you're better than anyone else, why your team is better than anyone else. And really, as you said, I made this company for me. And then I have two daughters. I made this company for my daughters. There's no other company out there that I would trust with my daughter's health to pick the right birth control pill. No other company has this algorithm. And very few founders have taken the oath that I've taken: do no harm. And no offense to all the MBAs out there, but like the MBA will approach this problem with, oh, let's give them the cheapest pill with the greatest margins, and then they're going to get side effects and then they're going to leave. But I have the added knowledge as a doctor, the expertise as a person who personally used the product. I like to say I live, eat, breathe, and prescribe birth control and the menopause. And I'd be like, you give her that cheap pill, she's going to have side effects. If I take away the side effects, she's going to be so thankful. And, to educate people that not all pills are created equal. So definitely, the standard 10 slides, but what makes you unique, what makes your team unique, how that applies to the investors. Some investors want to invest in fellow Asian Americans. Some investors want to invest in BIPOC. Some investors want to invest in minorities. Some investors want to see more women founded, women led. We are the only women founded and women led. We are the only doctor founded and doctor led. And I just realized we're the only moms founded and moms led birth control, telemedicine, and delivery company. And we are the only women of color physician led menopause company. So I think bringing that expertise, being a customer of the company, should speak to the authenticity and the care that we put into the company, the integrity that we put into this company.
No, I love that a lot. I think you said some really strong points too, right? Like I trust this company 'cause I use it for myself, my health, my kids, my daughters, and so forth. And that's really powerful positioning because you are not only responsible for other people, you're responsible for yourself. And I do agree that, there's some holes to capitalistic society where, the margin has to be bigger, but we all know that the venture capital side is not as, not as front facing or as glamorous as people think it is, just because at the end of the day, they want you to grow and sometimes grow at all costs. How are you able to find these investors that believe into your vision? And were there times where you said no to investor because it didn't fit what you wanted to do? Because sometimes the investor would just urge you on, hey, like you're only growing at 5 or 6%. We need you to grow like 15 or 20%. Right. We need you to cut corner, cut margin, whatever. And I know I'm not saying this out loud, but it's kind of true, right? Because they say that when you raise venture capital, you have a gun towards your head, especially as a founder. And I want to hear from your perspective. When was a time where you felt like the investor wants to invest, but you're like, no, I can't do this because it affects my core values and my morality. We can't do this.
Yeah, I think, you have to realize that you taking money, you owe the person that's giving you the money. And if they own enough of your company, then they control you, they control your company and where your company is going. And, if you've seen them do bad things before with other companies, then maybe that reflects, what they're doing. We've been lucky to get into several different accelerators that support women founders, women leaders, specifically Springboard Enterprise. I want to put out there, they're amazing. Originally based in New York, really originally about tech and then fashion because New York. And then they expanded into health after we joined. We were one of the early OG health companies, and now they have their own little health branch. And it's a nonprofit. You just donate to them. It's tax deductible. And they give you advisors and they have a pitch day. And it's just a powerful network of women. There's also what used to be SheEO, and it's now called Coreless. And maybe Cora is heart and less, maybe us and Coreless. And what's cool about this model is that women donate $1,100 to Coreless. They batch 500 women, so they have 500,000 and they take 100 of it for overhead. And then they vote on 5 companies. And then the 5 companies come together to debate how to split the 500,000, pretty much 100,000 each, unless somebody argues for more. And it is a interest-free loan that you pay back over 5 years. And then when you pay back, they can give out to more people and et cetera. So it's a very cool organization. And then last 2 are StartX, which has you usually have to have a Stanford affiliation in your founder, cannot be your advisor. So I have a Stanford affiliation, but they also have a a 10% diversity. So person of color, woman, other adversity, LGBTQ, et cetera, in your life that you can evoke. They have a 10%. And I love it because it's free. And it's just a community of founders helping founders. And certainly Gold House is a great community of founders helping founders. All Raise is another. And I have to give a shout out to my investors, Precursor Ventures, led by an amazing African-American guy who runs 200 plus investments and is just such a really nice, really cool, really smart investor. And then Backstage Crowd. So Backstage Capital writes checks. Backstage Crowd has a giant syndicate. They put you out there and you got your money in a week or two. It was amazing. And for those, investors to believe in me, my company, my team has been huge. And as a person who went to MIT, who can do your basic math spreadsheet, I know how to make a profit. And I know how to, fit the standard mold if you have to have $1 billion valuation within the next 5 years. I will make money, but I won't make it, doing snake oil. I won't make it defrauding the government, billing for stuff that patients didn't ask for. And so again, that's the difference between a doctor-founded, doctor-led company and the next company is I won't get us sued because I don't want to lose my license. It took me a lot of effort to become a doctor, and I'm not willing to risk my license for that.
Yeah, I like the obviously very detailed approach of finding different, foundations, funds that really focus on what you're doing. And I think that's a great tip for most founders because at the very beginning, you're kind of just trying to grab whatever money comes in your direction. Right? Oh my God, you believe into me? You're gonna give me money? Really? And sometimes you find out the hard way that they're not quite a good fit for what you're trying to build. So I would say definitely take your time to go down deeper, find niches of venture funds, focus on your particular industry, right? It doesn't make sense for you to get invested by a media company or a generalist fund or whatever. It makes more sense strategically, especially at the seed level, pre-seed level, to find funds that can actually help you grow. And that's a key word. All right, help you grow because a lot of them, you'll find out that, you have to reach out really hard to get the attention of some of your investors that invest into you. Like, don't you want to help me? I'm trying to grow. But yes, I do love obviously your understanding of how to scale, how to grow. And the next question I want to ask is, after you received your $650K pre-seed, right? And I know you raised a total of 2.1 between pre-seed and seed. What was the first use of that funds for? And that's something that I feel like most founders have trouble deciding. And we sometimes as first time founders, you have to give the right answer, right? A lot of investors don't like that. Oh, you're giving yourself a fat salary. That's the first thing. Of course, you got to pay yourself, right? But what is the realistic market for that as well? And how do you scale correctly? And in your position, what was the first key position that you need to hire immediately to help you grow?
Yes. So, what's unusual about our company is originally we had 6 founders. I didn't want to do this unless I had all of the components necessary. So rarely do you ever hear 6 founders. And so we had a physician, we had a pharmacist, you need a marketing person, you need your CTO. I have my other co-founder who's just a power networker. And then just as backup, I had my sorority sister from MIT, who was literally a rocket scientist, but who had also done consulting. And so if anybody questioned my business cred, I'd be like, she did, consulting and, has consulted with several different companies. We had 6 founders. And over time, we diarised our chief medical officer. We diarised our pharmacist because we couldn't pay a pharmacist's full-time salary for 5 customers, 10 customers. You just can't justify that. And so the first spend was to replace these people that we lost because they were coming in as founders and we could totally underpay them. But now we have to pay contractors, at a better rate. And then, of course, there's always customer acquisition. And so investors don't like to hear that you're spending 50% of your budget on Facebook, Insta, Google, that kind of thing. But that's also, how you get your customers. And it's a very easy way to mathematically model, right? I put in $50, I get X number of customers. I put in $100, I get Y number of customers, and then you can model it. And so we based our financial model on that kind of, customer acquisition cost. And then any hacks that we did was gravy. And as a conservative person who has been the VP of finance for my sorority, the treasurer for my class at MIT, the homeowners association, I always over budget spend, under budget income, because I don't want to fall short and need money. And so we budgeted high for customer acquisition costs, and any hacks that we did that brought it down through SEO. And as I like to say, I can generate content like no one else because I know the product. I can speak about it in my sleep. I can do YouTube. I can do TikTok. I can just talk. I can write blogs. I can write emails, all that stuff. All of that is gravy and bringing down the customer acquisition costs. And when I say gravy, it's lower customer acquisition costs, greater profit.
No, I like that a lot. And I guess to follow up that question as well, I know being a founder is incredibly difficult, especially at the early stages, right? Statistically, like most startups fail, and it's true. Like we still see it today. Like a lot of my friends that started with me in this 4 or 5 year journey, there's only a few of us, handful of us now. What has been your deepest inflection point throughout this entire journey where you kind of had a hard look at yourself, your business, and you really asked yourself, like, what do we need to do in order for us to survive? Right. Every founder goes through the inflection point. I like to call it, for a lack of a PG word, a valley of shit at the very beginning, because you try to get it up, but no one believes into you until you get the momentum going, until you get past that valley, and it gets slightly better, and then you find a bigger valley. You're like, oh my God, it just gets worse. And everybody goes through that inflection point at the seed stage, especially at the pre-seed stage. What was your inflection point? What like situation caused you to look deeper inside to be like, dang, this is going to be a rough ride. Am I ready for this?
Yeah, I would say that every time you have to fundraise, that is my valley of poop. And it's, knocking on the doors, saying, here's my baby. I love this baby. And they're like, meh, I don't think your baby's gonna make it. I don't think your baby should live. And it's like, no, this is my baby, please. I've made a beautiful product, and we are the best team out there providing the best customer service, the best level of care. And then people are like, sometimes it's not the best one that wins. It's the one that grabs the most market. And it's like, but what do you think you should invest in? Do you want to invest in the one that's giving crappy care, or you want to invest in the one that you would want for your daughter, for your friend, for your niece, for your future granddaughter, right? And as you said, finding the right person that believes in that model of, I will make money, I just don't need to make it doing bad things, and that this is a capable team. I think it's been hard raising money, and sometimes I wonder if I had my husband go out and pitch the company, Asian, male, MIT, Apple, money would just fall from the sky. And I spoke to an African American friend, and he was like, you should just hire a white guy to go fundraise for you. And I was like, do I just do that and give in? And I say no. I say that we can do this, but it is hard. And as a physician, I go into medicine very conservatively, because if I mess up, somebody's health is at stake. Someone could die. Someone could end up pregnant. Someone could have blood clots. There's just all sorts of conservative scariness. And I hate roller coasters. But startup is an absolute roller coaster. With the difference, one email, and you're like, yeah, I got the investor. And then you get another email, and you're like, why? No. And you just got to realize you just need 3 yeses, maybe 2 yeses, and screw all the 97 no's, right? You just need to find that 2 or 3, but you have to knock on 100 doors to find that 2 or 3. And I was always optimistic as a CEO, right? As a founder, but because if you're not, you're just going to die. But maybe a little too optimistic. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do it. And then no. And you're like, boo, back to the, drawing board, back to the asking for investment in our company. So every time you fundraise, I think that's looking at what's happening, right?
Every time you fundraise is an inflection point. That's true. But then sometimes you have to realize that you are your biggest cheerleader, right? No one believes into your vision as much as you do. And if you're the leader and you're not optimistic when things are dark, who's going to be the light bulb? Who's going to be the whole company is gloomy and everybody just gives up, And I don't know. I just feel like this feeling of desperation never really goes away. And it's not exactly a bad thing, right? I feel like desperation forces you to do things you would never really do. And especially for founders, sometimes like do or die. right? And only you know the situation as clear as day because you know the market, you know exactly what's going to the team. And if you don't have your ears and your eyes and ears to the ground, like you're gonna fail, right? You have to look out for competitors. So much going on, right? Look for competitors, look out for policy changes, looks out for everything that goes on in the industry and so forth. And we talked a lot about you starting your company and inflection and raising the pre-seed. Let's talk about the additional million plus that came in, right? How did this happen? How did you reach out to people? Was this at this point through connections? What was the time period between the first raise and the second raise?
Yes. So looking at our cap table, it was about 2 years between the first raise and the second raise. And the difference was part of it was I had done a pitch competition, and one of the people was there. And as if you haven't figured out, I run Yappy. I love to talk. And like, you talk too much, but I will be your advisor and I will help make some introductions. And so that was very helpful in securing the person who, headed that round. And then it was really about connections, unfortunately. So not unfortunately, but not everyone has connections. And so the other one was a Springboard fellow entrepreneur. She's like, let me introduce you to my investors. And so the best introduction is from a startup founder who's crushing it. And they're like, come meet my friend who's also part of the same organization that I am, and I'm awesome. And so then introduces you. And so that was how we secured our second major investor. And then Backstage Capital, Arlen Hamilton is just amazing. She's written a book about her journey, and she's on Twitter. She's very accessible, and connected with her over Twitter. So that one was out of the blue cold call that you can do too. But not everybody hit up Arlen on Twitter because she'll hate me then. But that's how we got our three major investors, and then hitting up people who had invested before.
You are a hustler for sure. You definitely belong in the Asian Hustle Network and the Asian Hustle Network podcast as well. It does. I mean, lots of credit, lots of different nuances there as well. As a founder myself, like unfortunately, you're always selling and you're always fundraising. It doesn't matter who you meet, and you're always recruiting. The three things: you always recruit, you're always selling, you're always fundraising. That's going to be the nature of the game moving forward, and you just have to be. Not everyone's built for it, but you can develop skill sets for it. Right, because like what is vital for your company, and so forth. I'm kind of curious, Sophia. Like we listened to a lot of your story. I love your passion. I love how you built the right team around you, and having 6 founders is pretty insane. By the way, that's a lot of people. So I'm kind of curious. What is next for you? How are you gonna achieve the Series A and B and so forth moving forward?
Yeah, so I do have to admit that I recently transitioned from CEO to chief medical officer because I don't enjoy the knocking on doors, but I absolutely am assisting with the raise because if we don't raise it, then the company will die. So I will absolutely be there assisting with the raise. But I would love to go ring that NASDAQ bell and IPO Pandia Health. I've always, run with the tagline, the online health brand you can trust for women. We are focused on women's health. We are focused on doing what your primary care doctor doesn't have the time or expertise in. No one else has that algorithm about birth control. And then we're adding a genetics component to it. So anybody who's done 23andMe, DNA Ancestry, if you give us our genetics, we're throwing it into an AI ML model. And we're like, oh, you have these 5 genes and you did well on this birth control. The next woman that comes in, we're like, oh, you have these 5 genes and she did well on this one. So you'll do well on it too. And then we can apply that to menopause. We can apply that to obesity. We can apply that to acne. We have a database concentrated, focused on specific parts of women's health that other people don't have. And we're run by an academic that knows how to look at data, knows how to do research, and is obsessed with making women's lives better. So that's what's next for Pandia Health. Started with birth control, added acne, added menopause, and may add more things as we go along. That has always been our model. But even with that alone, it's a huge market. Menopause is way underserved, way underestimated, and birth control is vital from age, 12 and a half technically, but not sexually active, hopefully, until 15, until 52.
Definitely. Well, I think you have a great product. I think you built a great team. Obviously, you have a great personality to keep this engine rolling. I'm very impressed by your story, the story by in during the entire podcast, to be honest. I guess the final question I have is for women founders who are just starting today, who are raising for their company, and there's a lot of crazy tips I heard along the years, right? I heard some women, and this is very offline, by the way. They're like, oh, I had to like talk in a deeper tone of voice while I'm pitching to VCs, or like I had to like grow myself with a higher self-esteem, or even what you said earlier, I had to hire a white person to help me out, right? And it sounds crazy to me, at least, to hear that. What advice do you have for a women entrepreneur in 2024 raising today? What advice would you give her? Or what advice would you give yourself when you first started out?
I would say that build your village, build your connections, and absolutely, Springboard, StartX, Coreless, and Precursor and Backstage Capital came after that as a result of those three organizations helping me get in front of investors, as well as One World. That was the pitch competition, and they invested in us as well, helped us get in front of social venture capitalists. So build that community. And it's always nice to have fellow people at the same level and someone one level ahead of you tell you what's coming, what it's like, what it's like to raise pre-seed versus seed versus Series A. And for them, if they're doing it, crushing it, to make intros for you, which is very helpful. And then amongst the same level to commiserate. And to share resources like, this is a great PR person, this is a great marketing company, oh, I found this hack on how to write emails, etc. So it's really building community, asking for help, asking for introductions, and I wouldn't say speak in a lower voice. I always the debate what to wear, and I'm like, it's not fair. The dudes can just go t-shirt, hoodie, and jeans, and the women are like heels, no heels, makeup, no makeup, sexy, too sexy. Like so annoying. But if you come with the numbers are undeniable. Know your numbers for sure, and make sure you make a profit.
Definitely. Thank you for all the advice for on the show for sure. How can our listeners find out more about you and reach out to you online?
Yeah, would love it if you follow us on every possible social media. It's Pandia Health, and Pan is every, Dia is day, Pandia Health. We are on TikTok, YouTube, Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything, Pinterest. And then I'm trying to build my following on TikTok, Dr. Sophia Yen, DrSophia Yen, talking about, menopause, birth control, women's reproductive rights. Give me a follow. And then Twitter, if you want some radical, crazy teen MD, but Pandia Health, less radical.
Absolutely. We'll include all that in the show notes. But Sophia, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me and highlighting Asian hustlers.
Of course.